Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. It's bright and early here on Cities 92.9, 606. We've got so much to get to this morning. I'm going to start out with quite a few local stories today. So today is definitely the day you don't want to miss because a lot of these stories that I'm going to be talking about directly affect you as an Illinoisan. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about Tammy Duckworth. She was called ignorant by a state representative, David Freeze. We're going to talk about that. He's an Illinois Republican. He said, unfortunately, you've got Tammy Duckworth, former Congressman Adam Kinzinger out there blurting things out, and they're coming from a place of ignorance. In this case, Tammy Duckworth blurted out that Tulsi Gabbard is compromised and suggested that she was a Russian agent. What? So we're going to get to it. Also want to talk about this little tiny county. This is a really interesting story. It's an Illinois county. It's called Bond County. And they're being accused of violating state law. State law actually requires, and this is something that you need to kind of, archive in your brain and remember, just in case wherever you're at, McLean County, Livingston County, the county is required by law to notify you prior to budget approval and propose a budget to the taxpayers. Okay. And then there's a certain time period in which they have to propose this thing and then approve it. Bond County apparently didn't do that. It appears they didn't do this. And now you've got former Attorney General candidate. He sued the state of Illinois and Governor J.B. Pritzker, that's Thomas DeVore, over the mask mandates, and he's accusing Bond County, where he's from, actually, of violating the state law after the board approved their new budget this fiscal year, 2025. So we're going to get to all of that. Plus, I do want to talk about this. You've been hearing it on the news this morning. Tom Davis was reporting Illinois Physicians Group. This is the Illinois Psychiatric Society. They're saying that there's not enough evidence to call psychedelic mushrooms. Psilocybin is, one of those psychedelics that are illegal. The DEA has classified psilocybin specifically as a Schedule 1 substance. Now you have this physician group of psychiatric doctors, right, saying that this isn't safe, and there's not enough research done to prove that these are safe and effective treatments for psychological treatment. And Illinois is trying to legalize this thing. And so there's this a very similar sentiment that's out there with the marijuana stuff, right? They said, we're going to have doctors prescribe marijuana. Ultimately, what's going to wind up happening is they're going to create this and make this a recreational drug. And like marijuana, we're starting to see with marijuana, actually, the harmful effects, not only on society, but people's health. So, yeah, legalizing this, a lot of people are, raising their eyebrows. Should we have legalized this thing? There's also these synthetic cannabinoids that have been derived after legalization because, of course, they want to avoid the taxation, and you're going to have these people who create cannabinoids, which now you've got the big cannabis industry trying to outlaw that kind of stuff, synthetic cannabinoids, because they're competing with the cannabis industry, and they don't like that. But cannabinoids also have very, from what I hear, not great health benefits. So there's all kinds of problems that come from legalizing these drugs. And right now, you will totally get those, stories about how, I took psilocybin and it was great, and I am a new person now, and I've gotten over my traumas. You had a bunch of veterans testifying at a hearing yesterday. It was a mental health and addiction committee hearing held in Chicago, and they talked about how much psilocybin helped them. Okay, but there's totally not enough evidence to suggest that these things are safe for everyone and safe for legalization. So the DEA has classified this as a Schedule 1 drug. We're looking to legalize it. We're getting ahead of the research, getting ahead of the evidence, like we did with marijuana. Now we see the effects of marijuana and how it can become addictive. They said back then, oh, this isn't addictive. It isn't addictive. They're saying the same thing about psilocybin. Fast forward, you're probably going to have a lot of people who just won't stop taking psilocybin and psychedelics. A couple of years, it becomes recreational and not for medical use, and then you're going to have a bunch of people on psilocybin. Similar to that of marijuana, right? All right, so let's first start with this little county. It's called Bond County. I wanted to start here because this is it's an odd story, but it's something that's very important. And I'm not an attorney, so I didn't know that the county board, so McLean County Board, has to approve a new budget. But before they approve it, they have to propose the budget to the public, to the taxpayer, because it's proposing it to the taxpayers, because you are the boss, by the way, of the county board. You elect them, you elect the county board, and you are their boss. You dictate the terms of what they spend money on, okay? So they have to give you at least 15 days prior to the date they vote on it. Tom DeVore, like I said, he's the former attorney general candidate. He also sued Governor J.B. Pritzker over the mask mandates. Now, DeVore said that the board did not provide a copy of the proposed budget to the public at a public meeting at least 15 days prior to the date that they voted on it, and he says that this is a violation of state law. He goes, I have no desire to sue the county board in my own county. Now, remember, Tom DeVore lives in this county. But the taxpayers are asking me, is this a possibility? If they don't do this thing right, if they don't, possibly recall this approved budget and vote on it again and propose the budget and give the public time to weigh in on it, if they don't fix this thing, then that's not out of the realm of possibility here for Tom DeVore. So they could have a nasty little lawsuit on their hands pretty soon, Bond County. Tom DeVore says, we don't want to do that because we want the citizens to have a chance to express themselves as it pertains to this budget. You are the boss of the county board, and you need to get involved, and you need to look at these proposed budgets, and you need to weigh in at a public meeting. Illinois law requires counties provide the budget to the public at least 15 days prior to final action. Notices pertaining to the meeting and the proposed budget shall be posted on the county's website if it maintains one. So if you have a website, then you have to publish it on the website, because then you have people who won't be able to go to the meeting and hear everything about the proposed budget. So you got to make it available so they can read it on their own time, the taxpayers, right? So here's where the situation gets really, really sticky in Bond County. So didn't know you could do this. This never happens in the private sector, by the way. A budget deficit of over $423,000 in the general fund. And Tom DeVore explained that the county only has $300,000 in their bank. So the county could be insolvent very soon. So they passed this budget, $423,000 in the hole, and their last year budget. So this is this fiscal year 2025. Their last fiscal year, they passed another budget with a budget deficit of $423,000. Now, they paid their bills. That's a budget deficit. They had to pay their bills out of their saving account last year, but they don't have any savings anymore. Okay, so apparently their savings account has been dwindled down to about $300,000. And it's bad policy, but they did it. They passed the budget last fiscal year, and it had a budget deficit. Then they're going to pass it again. This type of stuff would never happen in the private sector. Okay, if you don't have any money, then you cut programs, you cut employees, you do layoffs if you don't have any money, if the company is broke. Okay, you don't pass budgets with holes in them. It just never happens in the private sector. So DeVore said he asked the county board chairman, Chris Timmerman, who voted against the budget. Chris Timmerman did. He voted against it, to consult with the state's attorney there and figure out how to reset this vote. Okay, because we've got to give the taxpayers more time to digest this budget and to raise concerns. Obviously, there's a lot of concerns because 423,000. DeVore is predicting here that there's going to be mass layoffs and department closures for the county, and it's going to be tough later on. Okay, it's going to be tougher to do that later on once these people think that they have jobs for the rest of the year, right? And then you get your money dries up, and you're like, we're going to have to close entire departments. You got to make the tough calls right now. You got to cut some people. You got to make it right now, otherwise it's going to be hell later on. What's going to happen at some point this year, this is what Tom DeVore says, the general fund isn't going to have enough money. And when it doesn't have enough money, you can't write checks and you can't pay anybody. You're going to have to lay people off in droves and shut down entire departments instead of dealing with it now. They just passed the deficit budget again. Remember, they did this last year. They're doing it again this year, this Bond County. And this is a Republican county, from what I understand. This is a small rural county. And it's not like like this is a Democrat county. This is the kind of stuff like you've got to pay attention to. He says that if they run out of money this year, it's going to cause catastrophic problems. So the county board, they have not responded at all to these accusations of violating state law. They haven't responded. According to Tom DeVore, the board did draft a budget. Now, apparently that draft budget, they drafted it in early November. Okay, they had to pass it by November 30th. They had to, it passed a full one by November 30th, the final one. Now, they had a draft budget, but they didn't propose that to the public. Okay, that was not officially proposed to the public. The early November draft budget was approximately over $500,000 in a budget deficit, so it was even worse. So they did make cuts, but they didn't propose anything to the public. Okay, that was just a draft budget that they were working on, and nobody saw anything until late November. It was like November 25th, 5 days before they had to officially pass one. They proposed and approved the budget all on the same day. DeVore said he suspects that the deficit isn't because the county increased expenditures. So when I see budget deficits in local government, I'm always thinking to myself, okay, they have a spending problem. They spend too much money. DeVore suspects that this is actually a revenue problem because they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue from fees and fines that were generated from a now eliminated interstate safety effort. So this kind of stuff pertains to you. Remember when Unit 5 asked for tax increases, and I bet the county is going to ask for a tax increase this go around. McLean County, I think they are asking for a tax increase. I got to double check what numbers they've got here, McLean County. But they usually have a spending problem. 9 times out of 10, I'd say it's an expenditure problem where they're, spending way too much money. For example, in McLean County, they've got 2 people currently. They were like, we got to eliminate the auditor. It'll save us a ton of money. You guys have two people with the same job title, 2 exact same job title. It's the environmental health program supervisor, and they both get paid more than the auditor, by the way. But it's like, come on, can we cut one of those? Let's be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, okay? But DeVore says that, hey, it's probably because they eliminated this interstate safety effort, and that interstate safety effort actually generated a lot of revenue for the county. So here it is. For the last 15 years, interstate safety has been a big part of the sheriff's department's efforts. They've done a lot of good, keeping down accidents and keeping the community safe, the things that they do on the interstate, tickets, things like that. We saw accidents go down, and this interstate safety program that they used to have in Bond County would actually generate revenue from fines. And a couple of years ago, I guess the sheriff eliminated it and completely and said he's not going to enforce safety on the interstate anymore. And the county ended up losing over $700,000 that was being generated from that safety effort. And it's put the county in a position to where they don't have enough receipts to cover their expenses. They don't have enough revenue to cover their expenses. All right, I got to take a quick break, but this was an explosive story. I know it was boring, maybe because you don't live in Bond County, but this kind of stuff happens in York County all of the time. And this is just really interesting because they're purposefully withholding the budget from the taxpayers to avoid them looking into it and to see where the holes are and to see what we can do. And they are withholding it from the public because they don't want to be transparent. They haven't responded. I'd love for Bond County to respond, but they haven't responded to the taxpayers' concerns and to the accusations that they violated state law. I'll be right back. We're going to talk about Tammy Duckworth. So apparently, she came out and essentially said that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian agent. Give me a break. How's this sound? A little bit better? Test, test, 1, 2, 3. Test, 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 1, 2, 3. Maybe I had to turn down my volume a little bit. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, hoping that it sounds a little bit better. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about Tammy Duckworth and how she came after Tulsi Gabbard and actually said that she was compromised, and she insinuated that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian agent. Give me a break. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. Go ahead and smash that like button. All right. So, a little bit later in the show, we are going to be discussing Scott Jennings. Scott Jennings, in an explosive segment here on CNN, he puts up, I'll just have to share the video with you here in a second, but Scott Jennings, he puts up a little notepad and he divides it up and he says, good guy is Daniel Penny. Bad guy is Luigi Mangione. I think I'm saying that correctly. So Scott Jennings, he made it easy for us. He said, look, Daniel Penny is the good guy, and the United Healthcare CEO killer is the bad guy, Luigi Mangione. So for a group of people that want to fix their messaging, because the American people absolutely are appalled by this industry. They do not trust this industry, and this industry, I would actually argue, repels Americans, the media, the elitist media. For a group of people who wants to kind of fix their relationship with the American people, you would think that they wouldn't villainize heroes and celebrate villains. Okay, so thankfully, CNN Scott Jennings, he slowed it down a little bit for these idiots on CNN and, for social media influencer Representative OOC. You also have the tech blogger Taylor Lorenz out there now saying that she felt joy watching the video where the CEO was assassinated, gunned down. And I mean, to celebrate the CEO being assassinated, as I said yesterday, I was talking a little bit about, if the real culprits here are actually the lawmakers who destroyed our healthcare system. Okay, if you want to be mad at anybody, now I'm not calling for violence against our lawmakers, but there's a reason why the healthcare system sucks. And the reason why is because you just funneled all kinds of taxpayer dollars into it, you subsidized it, and the pharmaceutical companies, there's no cap on what they can charge for medical devices and medications. Okay, so there's no cap. They know that there's an endless supply of taxpayer dollars because it's I think in 2016 they gave the health insurance industry a 170 billion with a B dollar bailout. Okay, 170 billion dollar bailout in 2016. Okay, this is an endless hundreds of billions of dollars being funneled into this industry, into the health insurance industry. And everybody's like, oh, they're the bad guy, they're the bad guy, they're the bad guy. And the lawmakers who create this system, and they talk about systemic change and wanting to make systemic change. I wish that these people would do a little bit of critical thinking, because they'd know that the same lawmakers who demonize these CEOs and demonize this industry and demonize the private sector, they're the ones subsidizing this entire industry and causing this heartache and this pain of premiums going up and denial claims going up, or denying claims that those rates have gone up. I think since the Affordable Care Act passed, there was an 80% increase in premiums. Like premiums just went up by 80% after the Affordable Care Act. So the reason why it's so expensive is because these pharmaceutical companies are continuing to jack up their prices because they know that there's taxpayer dollars. For example, this is a little bit easier example. The Inflation Reduction Act, okay, they actually gave a tax credit out to people, Americans, for $7,000 something dollars. $7,500, I believe it was, in the Inflation Reduction Act for electric vehicles. If you wanted to go get an electric vehicle, you'd get a $7,000 credit. So free money, essentially. Tax credit. So $7,000 tax credit. They dumped all of that money into the American people to go buy electric vehicles. Here's what Ford did. Ford jacked up their prices by $8,000, knowing that the American people, right, they just had $7,000 put into their pockets to go buy electric vehicles. This is inflation. This is why things are so expensive in the medical industry. It's because they've funneled so much money and subsidized that entire industry, the health insurance industry. Things like the Affordable Care Act, by the way. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and Talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in. Scott Jennings, he made it pretty easy for us. He said Daniel Penny is a good guy and the United Healthcare CEO killer. Luigi Mangione, I can never say his name right. This is an Italian guy. And he's now accused of killing this United Healthcare CEO. He was found in a McDonald's, had incriminating evidence on him, but innocent until proven guilty. I've always known, I'm not going to get out there and say that this guy is guilty, although a lot of the evidence seems to be damning against this guy. But Scott Jennings said, Daniel Penny, good guy. United Healthcare CEO killer, who hasn't been convicted yet, but whoever killed him is a bad guy. Whether that's Luigi Mangione or whatever, whoever it is, he's a bad guy, okay? Because this was a cold-blooded killing. Was assassinated in the street, shot down like a dog, this guy, and he was a husband, he was a father. And it's really sad that you've got people like Taylor Lorenz, this tech blogger out there, saying that she felt joy and is celebrating the CEO being assassinated. And you would think that this industry, the media, for a group of people who really want to be in the good graces of the American people, right? They've got to fix their messaging because the American people repel this industry. I think I saw actually the Hallmark chant, Mangione, that's his name. Thanks so much for texting that in. Mangione. He is the suspect here. He hasn't been convicted. But you would think that the media would be trying to get into the good graces of the American people. And when you celebrate villains like the CEO killer, whoever it is, whether it's Mangione or not, or whoever it is, celebrating villains is not the way to win over the American people and to get the American people to trust you. The left likes to villainize heroes like Daniel Penny. I think I saw somewhere that more people watch the Hallmark Channel than they do MSNBC or mainstream media like CNN. Okay, people are not watching you because they don't trust you, and they're repelled by this. Like they physically are not watching because they can't stand you, and you'd think that they'd fix their messaging. We're going to get to all of that. Scott Jennings makes it very, very simple on a CNN panel. But before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Tammy Duckworth. Tammy Duckworth, the U.S. senator, she's a Democrat. She's been a long time U.S. senator, not as long as Dickie, but a pretty long time. She's a Democrat and she's a veteran, and she said that she's got concerns about President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence. She said that Gabbard is compromised during a CNN appearance. I want to play this clip here. And she referenced Gabbard's 2017 trip to Syria. Okay, so in 2017, Tulsi Gabbard met with the then Syrian president. He's no longer, I guess, the president because he fled Syria, and we'll get to that here in a second. What's going on in Syria and the rebel forces here, the Islamist rebel forces who have been designated a terrorist group. By the way, it's called the HTS. This was an organization that took over Syria, but we're going to get to that here in just a second. But she met Tulsi Gabbard with Bashar Assad back in 2017. And because of that, Tammy Duckworth is now saying that she thinks that she is possibly compromised.
She's a critic of U.S. intelligence operations. She has promoted Russian propaganda. Your fellow Democrat, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, called her, quote, likely a Russian asset. Now, you and Tulsi Gabbard are both veterans. You served with her in the House. What do you think of her?
Well, I think she's compromised. I think by going to Syria and basically backing, a brutal dictator there. Russian-controlled media called her a Russian asset. So I do think that we have a real deep concern whether or not she's a compromised person. And frankly, the U.S. Intelligence Committee, the U.S. intelligence community has identified her as having troubling relationships with America's foes. And so my worry is that she couldn't pass a background check.
Wow. Okay. So you got Tammy Duckworth here. Now, weighing in on this, David Freese, he's an Illinois state rep. He's also a veteran. He explained that Gabbard went to Syria in 2017, talked to Bashar Assad, the president, the then Syrian president, because she was trying to figure out what was going on. She actually went there to talk about how the rebel forces were gaining traction there and how they were planning to overthrow the Syrian president, at the time, Assad. So she went there on a fact-finding mission. Just because you talk to foreign adversaries like Putin, right? They always say that, oh, Donald Trump is a Putin puppet or whatever. Just because he talks to our foreign adversary does not mean, or just because Gabbard went on a fact-finding mission and talked with the then Syrian president does not mean that she's compromised, okay? Anybody that is, just trying to get more information, I think that's a good thing. Here's what David Freese said. He goes, it's really sad Duckworth calling Gabbard compromised because based on my understanding, she had a meeting with Assad who was aligned with the Russians, but she was on what I considered a fact-finding mission, talking to him, trying to get an understanding of what was going on in the country, who was trying to overthrow him, because the rebels were trying to overthrow him back then, okay? It's been going on for a long time, and she was trying to get more information about the rebels, who they were dealing with, probably because she foresaw or could understand and see into the future that, hey, Bashar Assad is not going to be the Syrian president for very long. So I should probably talk with him and get as many facts as possible from him about the rebel forces, things that he's gathered on the rebel forces who have now taken over Syria. Okay. Tulsi Gabbard was doing clearly, she was playing 4D chess, much like what Donald Trump does with Vladimir Putin. This is what you have to do with our nation's enemies. She was trying to get a different perspective of what was going on in Syria and get as much information about these rebels as possible. Now, these Islamist rebel forces, it's led by an organization, I'm going to do my best here, Hayat Tahrir Asham. It's HTS is the organization that's been designated a terrorist organization by both the US and the UK. And they captured parts of Syria, and ultimately Assad resigned and left the country in a flight to Russia over this last weekend. I'm going to take a quick break, but we're going to talk about Assad's regime fall and how you got Democrats out there saying, oh, it's such a great thing. No, I'm not saying that Assad is great. Terrible dictator. A lot of these Islamic countries are just silly, silly places, and they're all just terrible, terrorist, a lot of them. At least the parts that are, run by terrorists, they're just awful, right? They kill Christians, they hurt women. And these rebel forces, I don't think are going to be much better than Assad. So we're going to talk about it here next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button, share this online. Go ahead and share this out with your friends on Facebook. Thank you so much, Brian. It's Mangione. He's the guy who's accused of being the CEO killer, okay? The United Healthcare CEO killer. Like I said, innocent until proven guilty. The other day, the media was there and they were filming him, and he was going in, and I think he was being booked or something, and he was in cuffs and bright orange, and he shouts out and he says, you're insulting the Americans' intelligence. He goes, what was it exactly? I'll have to look it up, the exact quote, but he pretty much said, there's no evidence against me, and you're insulting the American people's intelligence because I didn't do this, right? And then his lawyer comes out and says that there's not enough evidence to be charging him. So I don't know. We'll have to see how this kind of plays out. And it's until proven guilty. But here's the thing. Whoever did kill the CEO, bad guy, very bad guy. And like I said, Republicans, Democrats, we can all agree that the healthcare system is broken. But the real culprits here, and I'm not calling for violence against our lawmakers, okay? There's a way to fix this, and it's by voting those people out who voted for the Affordable Care Act and continue to vote for things like bailing out the insurance companies with $170 billion worth of taxpayer funds, okay? We need to stop funneling money and subsidizing this industry, and we need to let it go, and we need to let it compete on its own. They're going to bring down prices. Okay. Now, we also, if we are going to subsidize, which I don't think we should subsidize, by the way, the insurance companies or the healthcare industry at all with government assistance for people. If we were to do this, we need to put caps on the pharmaceutical companies because we have an endless supply of taxpayer funds just going into this industry, okay? And they understand that the insurers are going to pay whatever they charge, whatever these pharmaceutical companies charge, because they will never run out of funds because it's taxpayer dollars. You never run out of money when it's taxpayer money because you can just increase taxes on people and continue to tax them more and more and more and more. Okay, you tax them to breathe at this point. Yes, they're doing that in New York City, or it's a traffic tax. If you're in traffic, then you have to pay like a $9 fee. But they've got so much money funneled into this industry, the insurance industry, and they're subsidizing it. Now you've got the pharmaceutical companies saying, look at those insurance agents or insurance companies. They'll pay whatever we price this medical device at. because they've got an endless supply of money and they'll just do what, and all these rich people, the people in the insurance companies, the people in the pharmaceutical industries, the lawmakers, it's just this revolving door of favors, lobbyists doing favors for government, and then government in turn doing favors for the lobbyists and for this industry. I mean, that's what this is all about. So if you really want the real culprits, if you really want the real culprits of who broke the insurance company or who broke the healthcare system, then you need to look at your lawmakers, specifically the lawmakers who decided that the Affordable Care Act was going to be a good thing. Because what the Affordable Care Act ultimately did, it forced insurance companies to cover people with existing healthcare conditions. Now, I'm not saying it's not right that you don't cover people with existing healthcare conditions, but you as an insurance company, if you think that that's a business model and you don't want to cover people with, existing conditions that are derived from, like, their self-induced diabetes, right? I don't want to cover somebody who just drowns themselves in Mountain Dew and Lay's potato chips. Okay, as an insurer, you're a risk. Much like car insurance companies don't like insuring people with suspended licenses or a record of drinking and driving. Okay, you are a risk. I don't want to, and you'll see people will start to straighten out their health and they will stop. Once they can't find insurance companies that will support their lifestyle of self-induced diabetes, you're going to find out that Americans are going to be healthier. With the car insurance, you find out that there is a stigma against drinking and driving. There is a stigma when it comes to breaking the law behind the wheel, right? All of those things, we can all agree as Americans and as, drivers, that those things are bad and we shouldn't be doing that. And the reason why that's stigmatized like that is because you will not be insured if you are a risky driver. You shouldn't be insured if you're a risky individual when it comes to your health, if it's your own doing, right? All right, I'm going to come right back. We're going to continue this talk with about Syria and Assad's regime fall. That's next here on Conservative Cat. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. I want to talk about the Syrian rebel forces here, or the Islamist rebel forces, who have been designated, by the way, a terrorist organization, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, something like that. It's the HTS organization. We've deemed them a terrorist organization. The UK has deemed them a terrorist organization. All of a sudden now the UK is talking about taking them off that list, which is absolutely ridiculous. But they captured parts of Syria, this terrorist organization, Islamist rebel forces. Okay, now I'm not saying Assad is a good guy. They're all terrible, terrible people. Okay, Assad ultimately left the country and he got onto a flight to Russia over the weekend. Okay, so Gabbard was criticized online after Assad's regime fall. So here we have Illinois Republican Adam Kinzinger, little Adam. He wrote on social media, quote, "Wonder if Tulsi Gabbard will offer Assad safe harbor at her house. Why? Because in 2017, she went to go talk to him because she foresaw that this was going to happen. And she wanted to collect as much information about the new Islamist organization that was going to be controlling Syria. She wanted to know more about that. She was on a fact-finding mission." Then Kinzinger said, "They're great friends, Assad and Tulsi Gabbard." This is just speaking from a place of ignorance. Here's what David Fries, an Illinois state representative and veteran, said. He said, "They don't have all the facts. They don't have all the information, and they're blurting something out." Exactly. They want to make headlines. That's what Adam's doing. That's what Tammy Duckworth is doing. They know that Tulsi Gabbard is not a Russian asset, and they know that she's not compromised for simply going to talk with the dictator, Bashar Assad. Okay, that doesn't automatically make her a Russian asset. Freeze said this too, by the way. He says, look, she's a former Democrat, Tulsi Gabbard. Whatever happened to this whole bipartisanship and reaching across the aisle? Now all of a sudden she's a Russian asset. She's a Democrat, for Pete's sake. Just because she doesn't align with everybody on a particular issue doesn't mean she's a Russian asset. That doesn't make sense to me yet. Just because you think that it's a wise move to not talk with your foreign adversaries and figure out what's going on over there and to go on fact-finding missions, just because you don't think that's a correct way to go about foreign policy doesn't mean that she's a Russian asset. Okay, to go there is insane. Despite assurances, fears persist over there in Syria with the specifically Syrian Christians. Now, specifically, this organization, they have so far been decent to the Christian community. And by decent, I mean like they only kill some Christians, right? But they are assuring this HTS organization, the rebel forces that have taken over Syria now, they're assuring the Christians that they're not going to kill them. Okay. But where have we heard that before? Right? It always happens. This is always what they say. They say, oh, don't worry, we won't kill you. And then all of a sudden all the Christians are being beheaded. So Syrian Christians worry about the Syrian Islamist opposition group, HTS, taking over. Christian Solidarity International said in a statement that HTS's ideology gives religious minorities in a part of Syria here, it's called Aleppo or something like that. It's a little part where some Christians and other religious minorities reside, okay? And they have serious concerns about these promises and assurances. They think that they're empty promises. They think that they're lying. And most likely they are, okay? Because history tells us that a lot of these Islamic groups that, take over, other Islamist groups and terrorist organizations, they're all like fighting with each other, and all of them, if there's one thing that they all have common ground on, is that they don't like Christians and they like beheading Christians. And that's what goes on in the Middle East. I'm just going to be honest with you. You can't live in the Middle East and be a Christian, okay, and not die. That's the sad reality, okay? So to go over there, Tulsi Gabbard, and to try to get as much intel as possible from the current leadership then in 2017, knowing that there was going to be different leadership, she was trying to figure out how bad these Islamists really were, the HTS organization. How bad are the rebel forces in comparison to you? Do they kill Christians? What's their ideology? What should we expect if they take over? Okay. And Free said that Gabbard, as a member of the military, and she's a current member of the military, she's in the reserves, and she's a member of Congress, okay? She should have gotten, former member of Congress, she should have received answers as to why the government put her on a watch list. Okay, they put her on a watch list. I think it's ironic now that she's the director of national intelligence, or will be. She's Donald Trump's pick. They put her on a government watch list. She should have been able to ask, hey, why am I on this? Why am I on this watch list? Why do I have to be under extra scrutiny? Okay, so she wasn't on a no-fly list, but she was on an extra scrutiny list where if she was flying, the air marshal had to keep an eye on her, right? And she had to go through additional security, whereas we kind of go and we, show them our ID, we show them our boarding pass. She had to go through extra scrutiny, extra security when she was flying. And she probably shouldn't have been on the list, right? Why would she be on the list? But if she was, she should have been able to find out, what is this list I'm on and why am I on this list? Trump on social media, and this is important, he talks about the U.S. military staying out of Syria. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news, and Talk Bloomington Normal. We will be right back. Yeah, I kind of like this, what you're saying here. The truth is, covering pre-existing is not insurance, it's something else. Yeah, maybe we have to kind of look at that. Maybe there needs to be a separate, not even an insurance company, but a separate entity that provides aid to people who have pre-existing conditions and need help with their health. Okay. I'm not saying that, obviously things like cancer or things like, something that is out of your realm of controlling. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about the people who give themselves diabetes and have a diet that consists of Lay's potato chips and Mountain Dew. Okay. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people who have pre existing conditions that are out of their control and they need coverage. Okay. Or they need to have care. Perhaps we're looking at it all wrong. And I like what Brian says here. It's something else. It's not even something that should be in the insurance industry. Yeah, I could see that. What I would imagine, if we were to just take the government thumb off of the insurance companies and off of the insurance industry totally, and we were to stop bailing them out and funneling taxpayer dollars into this industry, $170 billion, remember, in just the year 2016 as a bailout to these insurance companies. The pharmaceutical companies know that they're getting this money. Okay. The pharmaceutical companies get money, right, from the government. The pharmaceutical companies know that the insurance companies are getting money from the government. That's why they keep jacking up their prices. Perhaps, and maybe this is a way to fix it. I am not by any means a crafty lawmaker or is smart enough to understand what's going on exactly and to come up with a solution. But maybe caps on the pharmaceutical industries and companies for charging things like for medical devices and medications, right? They can, like a time. So if this is a great example. You go to the hospital and a box of tissues. I remember this. They billed me for a box of tissues, and it was like $600 or something like that because I took a box of tissues. I'm not kidding you. I got a bug in my ear over this last summer, and it costed me like, I don't know, with insurance, like $600. Okay. So I had insurance at the time. Okay. It still costed me $600 out of pocket. And all this guy did, I didn't receive any medication. They didn't go in and pull the bug out. I think it was like our cats had fleas at the time. We were giving them flea baths, and I think one jumped into my ear, and I think it jumped right back out, but I felt it. It was all like in my head here. And, I think it jumped out while I was waiting in the waiting room because it took forever to get in. But it jumped out and they didn't do anything. Like the guy like maybe looked in my ear for a quick second and then they charged me $600, with my insurance. And I was like, wait a second. This is ridiculous. How much does it actually cost to have this guy look into my ear? How much does a box of tissues actually cost? At the hospital, because it's medical grade tissue and because it's supplied to them by these medical industry and by the pharmaceutical industry that, equips and provides medical devices and medication to the hospital, right? Same reason why the Tylenol, right, is you get your bill back and you're like, wait a second, the Tylenol is like $700. Okay. I can go to the Family Dollar and go get the same medication for way less. The reason why that is because the pharmaceutical companies know that they're getting the government money and that the insurance companies are just going to have to pay for it. But it's gotten so bad, right? They're charging, right? A box of tissues. Now I'm being ridiculous here. I think it was like $100 or something like that. A box of tissues, $100. It's gotten so bad to where the insurers are like, we're not covering it anymore. We want to make profit, right? And I'm not saying, you'll hear that saying they put profits over people. I'm not saying that they are blameless. I do think that they do want profit, right? That's not putting profits over people. It's them running a business, right? But they can't cover this anymore. The pharmaceutical industry has gotten way out of hand with charging. So maybe if they were to put caps on, how much you could cost for a box of tissues, for example, or cost or charge for a thing of Tylenol, right? Perhaps that could fix some issues we see in the healthcare system. Hey, good morning. I'm live on YouTube and on Rumble. You guys can go ahead, find me, subscribe to the channel. Before I took a break, Donald Trump had said on social media, I was telling you about Donald Trump, and on Truth Social, he said that the U.S. military should stay out of Syria. And now you've got the Biden administration saying that they have no intention to intervene. Well, that's reassuring. And then he said, and he called the fall of Assad, quote, a moment of historic opportunity. If Biden was in there, and he's leaving in about 40 days. If he were to have won re-election, or if Kamala Harris won her election, if there was a Democrat president, they would be in Syria right now. They'd be in Syria. It'd be another forever war, and we'd be in there, and we'd be sticking our noses where it doesn't belong, and we'd be trying to provide military assistance to HTS. HTS would be, out there killing our U.S. members, U.S. military members, and they'd be upset with us because they really don't want us there, but we're trying to help them, take over Syria, the rebel forces. These people are bad people. The rebel forces, Assad was a bad person. He was a bad, terrible dictator. They all kill Christians over there. It's just silliness that goes on in the Middle East. And I'm so grateful that I live here in America, right? And I get to go to church and worship and not die for doing that. But the Biden administration said that they have no intention of intervening, but they called the fall of Assad a historic opportunity. Interesting. Do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the Illinois legislators and how they heard from psychiatrists. They also heard from special interest groups like the Illinois Psychiatric Society, and some of these special interest groups want the passage of House Bill 1. What is House Bill 1? Well, it seeks to legalize substances like psilocybin. Now, like they said with marijuana, it's going to start out as, legalizing psychedelic substances like psilocybin or shrooms. This is shrooms. We want to legalize it right now for psychological treatment, and it's only going to be medical use, right? They did the same thing with marijuana, and then it turned out, it's recreational, and now there's a dispensary on every single corner, and people are high all of the time. They're not showing up to work, and there's addiction. And remember, they said, "Oh, marijuana, it's not addictive." Well, every single study now that it's legalized and people are actually using it, shows you that it is an addictive substance, and people are high, showing up to work high all the time. Come on, I know that you know this. I know that you know that you know this, okay? So we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about psychedelic mushrooms possibly being legalized here in the state of Illinois. We're going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. All right, go ahead and smash that like button and share this out with your friends. Christina, healthcare, AI and automation health networks and systems is the biggest abuse and scam in history. Remember, contact tracing and life and death decisions and training. AI, yeah. Hey, appreciate it, Brian. Yeah. Next time I will not be going to the hospital. And, I tell people this all of the time. And it kind of goes back to Christina's comment here. The healthcare industry, too many people, I think, rely on it a whole lot. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be going to the doctor, right? But I think a lot of people rely on it for silliness, right? And what I should have done was full disclosure, what I've been doing. And I know this might sound crazy, but I'm kind of a prepper, which shouldn't shock anybody. But purchasing my own medical equipment, right, that I might need, something to look at ears with, right? And something, purchasing some maybe like thermometers or oxygen readers, or blood pressure cuff, right? Can you hear me? Is everything okay? I don't know. I think that I'm hoping that I hope that you guys can hear me. Can you hear the audio? Smash that like button and share this out with your friends, and let me know in the comment section if you can hear me. But yeah, buying your own medical supplies, things like that. And I think a lot of health issues can be solved by simply going to bed, sleeping 8 hours a day, having a good diet, and getting some light exercise in, and walking, 8 to 10,000 steps a day. I mean, that would really help, but you won't hear doctors tell you anymore. And it kind of goes off Christina's comment here, where she says, all of this automation. Yeah, it's really weird what's going on in the health. If you go into the hospital now, you will not see a doctor. When I used to go into the doctor's office, there was always a doctor, somebody who went to school for 8+ years. Okay. There was always somebody there in a coat, in a lab coat, and he was the doctor, right? Or in like this white coat, a doctor's coat. And you don't see that anymore. It's all computerized. And a lot of it is nurse practitioners. Now, I'm not ripping on nurse practitioners, but there is way less schooling that they go through than a doctor does. Okay, they go through some schooling and some training, but it's way less. Now, the standard of excellence is attacked in this industry. More and more, you're starting to see like CNAs, CMAs, and there's way less training standards in the healthcare system. And actually, so I know somebody who works as a recruiter, right? And she talks about this all of the time. People who go to nursing school want to be remote. Yes, remote nurses, where you've got this whole entire, and I think it's a generational thing, whole entire generation who wants to be remote. And I understand, technology, it affords you to do this. And it's a great thing. And it definitely came out of the pandemic. We realized that we could all do our jobs from home. I really actually have no gripe with that. Surprisingly, you'll hear a lot of conservatives be very upset about that. I think the more time you can spend at home with your family and working for yourself and being an entrepreneur, I've got no problem with that. However, if you are pursuing an industry and if you're going to school to become a nurse, right, and to help people at a facility, then you probably need to show up to that facility, right? The whole point of nursing is to go to an office or go to a hospital and service people who are sick, okay? So, I mean, that's just ridiculous. So it kind of goes off of Christina's comment here. They remember contact tracing, where they were trying to do this whole, if you got COVID-19, how many family members did you hang out with? Let me reach out to those family members, and it was ridiculous. And it's skirting the actual work you have to put in the healthcare industry. And you got a bunch of lazy people in there. I'm sorry, but it never used to be like that. You'd go in and you'd have a doctor who had all kinds of training and had all kinds of schooling, and then you had the nurses to aid that doctor. That's not that way anymore. Maybe a hospital has 3 doctors and they're all on call and they're all working remotely. And then you've got the nurse practitioners who are there, maybe on the ground, but now, with the passage of a couple of laws here, you're going to have CMAs, or certified medication aides, and the nurse practitioners are going to go remote. And then the nurse practitioners are going to dictate to the CMAs what to do. And the interaction that you have at the hospital is not with somebody who is very, very skilled, like a doctor. It's usually somebody who might have like 60 hours of training. 60 hours is like a summer. Okay, that's what the CMAs. I think it's like 60 hours or something like that. And the nurse practitioners, not too sure, but it's way less than doctors. And I mean, you've got an entire industry that isn't prioritizing excellence. And I think that there's a lot of problems in all kinds of industries. Or there's a lot of those problems in all kinds of industries where excellent isn't paramount, and it should be paramount, especially in the healthcare industry. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., Monday through Friday. It's a live daily show. Not a lot of people do this, do a show live bright and early in the morning. I'm giving you all your Illinois news. Today was definitely the day to tune in because I'm talking about legalizing substances like psilocybin. Kat, what is psilocybin? I've never heard of that. That is mushrooms, magic shrooms, right? Where you go on a trip. Now, the Illinois House Committee, it's the Mental Health and Addiction Committee, they had a Tuesday hearing, and it was in Chicago, and they talked about the issues of whether, psychedelic substances like psilocybin should be used for psychological treatment. Now, where have we heard this before? Marijuana, right? In the beginning, all that was discussed was, hey, marijuana, we're going to use it for medical purposes. You have to get a doctor to prescribe it to you, and it's for medical treatment, okay? And you have to have a medical card in order to obtain marijuana. Fast forward, now there's a dispensary on every block, and you can't throw a rock and not hit a dispensary anymore, okay? I drive up my street, and I can smell it from the dispensary, and it's actually a place where they manufacture pots, so it's like a pot manufacturing plant, but I can smell it everywhere I go. It's on everybody's clothes. I can smell it everywhere, and everybody's addicted to marijuana. We know this. Studies have shown that people do get addicted to marijuana. So they're saying the psychedelic psychotherapists and the psychedelic people who work in these psychiatric institutes in other states that specialize in psychedelic treatment and psychedelic mushrooms, they will tell you, oh, it's not addictive. Wrong. It's actually classified as a Schedule 1 substance by the DEA, a Drug Enforcement Agency. And they say that Schedule 1 substances are particularly known for their high potential of abuse. So this is really interesting. Drew Snyder, and this is somebody who talked at this hearing in Chicago about legalizing psychedelics here in Illinois. He is employed at a Colorado-based integrative psychiatric institute. Okay, his name's Drew Snyder, a veteran. He was diagnosed with PTSD, and he testified that he benefited from psilocybin treatment. I don't doubt that. I 100% think that people can have benefits to psilocybin treatment, but there's not enough evidence to overwhelm or to create sweeping legislation that legalizes this stuff. This psilocybin, this is what Drew said, who took the psilocybin and saw relief. He said, this psilocybin was a last-ditch effort to reclaim my mental health. I had therapeutic journey, and it was profound and transformative. I was able to access and heal these deep wounds in my psyche. And I was standing in my kitchen with my wife, and I remember her saying, I feel like I have my husband back, the man I originally married. Yes. Trauma from experiencing things overseas in combat zones. People go through that stuff all the time, and it's tragic. State Representative Bill Howder, who is also a physician, an emergency room physician, he said that he's excited for any potential breakthrough in medication and mental health care. However, as physicians, we have to deal with the evidence. And as legislators, we should be looking at the evidence and listening to the physicians, the experts, and we shouldn't be going off of emotion. Yes. So I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm just going to level with you for a quick second. Psilocybin mushrooms, the way they work, and let me kind of talk about Dr. Abid Nazir, who also testified at this hearing. He talks about how when we look at the psychological benefit of psilocybin magic mushrooms, okay, shrooms, due to the psychedelics causing an altered state of consciousness, allows you to look at your previous trauma and yourself from a new light, especially when you're pairing that with psychotherapy. So like if you're in an environment and you've got certified psychotherapists who have been trained in leveraging this medication, they're calling it medication. It's a drug. It's a Schedule I drug. Leveraging this medication drug and offering it an environment where safety and screening and follow up are paramount. Okay, so you're aiding them in their trip. Okay, and their psychedelic trip. I'm going to be level with you for a second. I think a lot of mental health issues. The way they talked about psilocybin, you would almost think that it's the second coming. I'm going to say this, and it's really, really tragic that people go through trauma, go through issues, childhood trauma, and they've got these mental health issues. I think a lot of it could be fixed with not psilocybin, but Jesus. Your previous trauma, seeing yourself in a new light, right? Whatever happened to Jesus? I'm just going to be honest with you. I mean, you would think that this medication or this drug, whatever you want to call it, is the second coming, and that people are like, yes, this is my answer to all of life's problems. This drug, which you have to take maybe once, twice, but there's also negative side effects to it. There's been studies that have proved that this is addictive, that altered state of consciousness, people try to get that back again, right? Similar to opioids and heroin, you're seeking an altered state. And it is addictive. That's why it's a Schedule I substance. They've deemed it that. The federal government has deemed it that. Not approved by the FDA. I think they're jumping ahead a little bit here on the psilocybin issue. Our legislators and the Illinois government here, they're jumping way too far ahead. Whatever happened to Jesus? It's a really simple way to get your spiritual health back on track, your mental health, your physical health. Very, very simple way to get everything back in line. And nobody talks about that. Why? Because it's not a moneymaker, right? I'd imagine if we legalize psilocybin, here's what I'm already envisioning what's going to happen. It's going to be the same thing like it was with marijuana. On every street corner, there's going to be a psyche, right? Somebody who will, and who knows, probably not a licensed psychiatrist, definitely not a doctor. It's going to be some blue-haired liberal with a scarf around her head, right? A gypsy type woman, and she's going to give you a reading while you're on your trip or whatever. Okay, that's what I'm foreseeing happening in the state of Illinois. That's where we're headed. Okay, because they're looking at this thing, and Bill Howder, he questioned Christopher Holden, who was testifying as a leader of the Illinois Psychiatric Society. They are opponents in part of legalizing psilocybin for psychological treatment. Now, Howder questioned Holden in the hearing, and he said, "Would you say there are not enough safeguards for patient safety?" And then Holden answered yes. And then Howder, he said, "Hey, are you concerned that people who are going to be administering this psilocybin don't have proper education, expertise, training, or the experience to handle and administer these types of medications?" Yes. I have deep concern, because I guarantee you it's going to wind up similar to that of the marijuana industry, where there's a dispensary on every corner. But this is going to be, psyches are going to be issuing psychedelic medication, but they're really just like blue-haired liberals who flunked out of college and don't know what to do with their lives, so they give people mushrooms and help them on their trip. I foresee this happening. And the Holden, the guy who is a leader for the Illinois Psychiatric Society, said there's not enough, or it's important to not get ahead of the science. He admitted that there's not enough evidence of the efficacy and safety of psychedelic medications. And what really bothers me is that you've got these people, they're special interest groups, and I appreciate his service. I'm sad that he had to go through that. I'm glad that he's found peace. I think it might be a little bit display. I mean, it's said that psilocybin gave you this overwhelming peace with yourself. A drug gave you peace with yourself, because that's never going to last, right? I don't know what the long-term effects are of that, but I'd imagine, if you go through some more trauma, you have to go back and take more psilocybin, and then what kind of effects does that have on it? You after you take it 2, 3, 4 times, okay? It's not lasting. I'll tell you what is lasting: Jesus. Declaring him as Lord and Savior, right? That is a lasting solution to a lot of, I think, mental health and spiritual health problems. But like I said, it's kind of we're jumping ahead. So here's what Howder said. He goes, I see the potential in this. I do. I desperately want this to help people, but we have to go through the process when we come in and try to approve an illegal substance without evidence, creating a licensing system for, I don't know who will be administrating this medication. But if we try to create this licensing system and, ultimately you've got, blue-haired liberal who flunked out of college administering this medication, and it's not FDA approved. When we come in here and start doing all of this, and we're not working off of evidence, but we're rather working off of emotion, it's frustrating for me to see this. That's what Howder said. So I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Find me on YouTube and on Rumble. A little bit later in the show, we are going to be talking about this guy. He got arrested, okay? Now, he got arrested for stealing from Walmart, and he chose the day where a Shop-a-Cop was going on. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Shop-a-Cop. It's a bunch of cops that go in and shop, and they shop for like a charity, like Toys for Tots or something like that. But this guy, he attempted to steal like $1,400 worth of merchandise in front of like 50 cops at Shop-a-Cop. So we're going to get to that story because I think it's hilarious. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I'll be right back. Limbs will say, but it's no worse than alcohol, duh. Yeah, well, alcohol, when abused, right, it is bad for you, right? There's plenty of studies that alcohol is stigmatized. Okay, you're not supposed to be drinking and driving and all of that. However, when you're going on a trip and it quite literally alters your state of mind, never taken psilocybin, okay? Don't ever plan on it. But you're altering your state of mind in a very intense way, similar to marijuana. They'll say, oh, it's no different than alcohol. No, there's different things than alcohol. It's all with your bloodstream. Now, I'm no doctor, but it's all with your bloodstream, and it does alter your thinking and cloud your judgment and all of that. But marijuana and psilocybin, these are drugs that alter your brain in a very different way than alcohol does. That's why alcohol is legal and drugs aren't. Okay, so Schedule and substance drugs. So there's, I'm sure we paid for this research. Yeah. That's another thing, is if you want to continue, I would say not to research this at all. I think that we all pretty much understand what psilocybin is. It's a psychedelic drug, and to legalize it would have damaging effects on society as a whole. Everybody's like, I can't find good work. I am struggling to find somebody who wants to work for me, or my my nephew, right, is just high all the time and he won't get a job, right? All of these issues that we face in society, it's because of, I think a lot of it could be attributed to the legalization of marijuana. If we want a healthy society, a vibrant, thriving society, legalizing drugs like psilocybin, like marijuana, is only going to be a detriment to society. Now, for people who want to live in a society like that, where nobody cares about anything and everybody is like cracked out of their mind and not functioning, there's people who want to live in a society like that. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a society like that. That's why I'm against the legalization. I was against legalization of marijuana. I am continue to say that the legalization of marijuana. Now, do I think we should be locking people up for smoking a little dope? No. There's difference between legalizing and decriminalizing. Okay. If we're decriminalizing psilocybin, and we're, and it's already sort of decriminalized, okay, because you go in and any kind of drug addiction that you have, there's all kinds of programs, government programs for you to get on and to get help. Okay, there's places you can go to stop your addiction, and addiction centers and all of that places, and you get government handouts for that stuff all of the time. So we already have a system kind of set up in place for people who are addicted to drugs, and we have decriminalized it a lot, to where we're not just locking people up for using drugs. Okay, heroin, marijuana, psilocybin. There is a system in place where we don't criminalize those things, or criminalize them to an extent where we're sentencing somebody 20 years in prison for a little joint. Okay, we can understand we can understand that these people are addicted, and I'm not saying not throw them in jail at all. What I am saying is that we shouldn't, be coming down on with a punitive hammer on these people who are addicted to drugs. At least marijuana. Now, I don't know, psilocybin, heroin, I don't know. Or you go the other direction and you just throw them in jail for a very long time and then nobody ever does it. I don't know. But a good society, a vibrant society, one that is not docile by drugs and sedatives, right? The only way that we can have a vibrant society, and one that isn't clouded by drug use, is by having these things not available, not putting it in the hands of people. Okay, before marijuana was legalized recreationally, you had people who got it from a little drug dealer or something like that, and it was, oh, you got caught with it, you get few months in jail or something like that. We had a much better society, and people wouldn't, because even just that little bit was like, nope, I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 The News and Talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Before we took the break, I was telling you about psychedelic mushrooms. They are looking at legalizing this thing. And, the same conversations are happening that happened when we legalized marijuana for recreational use and medical use. They're like, oh, it's completely safe, it's not addictive. We now know, all of the studies show that marijuana can be addictive, right, and is addictive. And just ask anybody. I'm sure you've got a nephew who refuses to go work because he wants to sit at home, eat potato chips, and get high all day because he's addicted to pot. Okay, I don't need a study to tell me that people are addicted to pot. I live it. Okay, everybody smells like pot everywhere I go, and there's a dispensary on every single corner. If people weren't addicted, that wouldn't be the case. But you got State Representative Dennis Tipsford. He expressed concern that Illinois could potentially legalize psilocybin which is classified as a Schedule 1 drug under the Controlled Substances Act. Schedule 1 drugs, according to the DEA, have a high potential for abuse. Proponents say that, it's next to zero. The concern that psilocybin is addictive. Give me a break. You said that about marijuana. I don't believe you. Point is, there's not enough research. I don't even think that we should be conducting research on psychedelic drugs, really, because that's what, the pharmaceutical big pharma wants. They want to spend all this money, pay a bunch of people to conduct this research on the taxpayers' dime, right? And it's just, I don't even think that we should research it, to be honest with you. I think that there's plenty of evidence to suggest that this isn't a good thing. If you want more evidence, you shouldn't do it on the taxpayer's dime. The private sector can go research this and figure out, for medical uses or whatever, and if it would be safe for medical treatment. But I don't want to pay for it as a taxpayer, because I'll tell you right now, altering somebody's consciousness, and this is the way the doctor described, a doctor who was pro psilocybin. He said, it alters your state of consciousness, and then you start to look at your previous trauma in a new light, and look at your previous trauma and yourself in a new light. I know exactly how you can do that without psilocybin, and it's for free, and Big Pharma won't get their hands on it and make it into a medication, and you don't need to spend all kinds of money on a psyche or a psychotherapist or anything like that to go and help you on your journey and your trip using psychedelic medications. I'll tell you a easy way, free way. It doesn't cost anything except Lord and Savior Jesus Christ into your heart. Really easy. I'm sorry, but I know that might be controversial, but I really don't give a damn. All right, I do want to talk about this CNN guest, who is an American citizen, by the way. And she says that Donald Trump is going to deport her because she's an American citizen. What? This takes an extreme level of stupidity to think that U.S. citizens are going to be deported under a Trump administration, but never underestimate CNN's ability to be completely psychotic.
I might be deported because I'm a naturalized citizen. And Stephen Miller, who is Donald Trump's deputy chief of staff, has said that they're going to embark on a denaturalization program. So I could be deported, my citizenship could be taken away, and my children could be deported because they have birthright citizenship. So this is not what the country voted for. Let's be very clear. Americans voted for Trump because of groceries, because of lowering costs. He has not talked about that one bit. What this country did not vote for is to deport the 11 million undocumented immigrants who do critical work for our country.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure Laken Riley's family probably voted for Donald Trump, by the way. I'm not too sure about that, but families like Laken Riley's family definitely voted for Donald Trump to deport illegal aliens.
Economy, who have injected $7 trillion into our economy. And what Americans want is a solution to immigration. They want expanded legal pathways, and they do want more stronger, smart border security, which is exactly what Democrats are talking about. And Democrats have always been the ones willing to work with Republicans on a solution. And it's been Republicans that have always pulled the rug from under our feet.
Wow.
Well, no, all of it. Just stop. So this woman, extremely stupid. As the CNN guest, she obviously went on an unhinged rant claiming that her kids were going to be deported under the Trump administration because her kids were born here. Now, according to NBC, here's how they're reporting it. President-elect Donald Trump said in an interview on with Meet the Press, Kristen Welker, "You have no choice but to deport everyone who is illegally in the United States, including possibly removing American citizen family members of those deported." However, that's not what he said. He said families can be deported together, which means, a nuclear family that consists of parents who broke federal immigration law and they had anchor babies. That's what they're called. They come here to this country and they try to anchor themselves by having a baby here in this country. These reporters know that. They know that he was talking about those types of situations, which are rare, by the way. These reporters know. I mean, it's probably as rare as abortions derived from rape. Okay, 0.0001%, where you've got two parents who break federal immigration law and they have a child and is born here in the United States. Okay. The baby's born here in the United States, and that baby is because of birthright citizenship, which is why I think birthright citizenship is so dumb. Right. You have to have ties here to get you. I just think that's absolutely ridiculous. And I think he's going to be changing that a little bit, the birthright citizenship thing. But you have these anchor babies. What he was talking about, that baby can then be deported with the family. There is no situation, I can't imagine a situation where two parents are being deported and they had a baby here in the United States, so technically birthright citizenship, right? I can't imagine those parents saying, yes, I'll be deported, but I want my child to stay here. Okay. Most of the times I'd imagine that those parents say, no, we're taking our kid when we're being deported. Okay. When we go back to whatever country we came from, right? These reporters know that they're lying to the masses. They're trying to confuse the masses and instill fear into them, and they're trying to say that Donald Trump is going to start deporting U.S. citizens. Okay. No, he's going to deport people, or he's going to deport children who are born here back home with their parents, which is the right thing to do, is to keep the family together. If their parents broke federal immigration law, they need to leave with their parents. Okay. These are progressive lunatics, and this is what they were referring to. This is Kristen Welker with Donald Trump. She tried to trap Donald Trump in the same way they tried to trap Tom Homan on the family separation thing. Like I said, this is probably like 0.001% instances like this that matter, right? Where, you've got kids who want to stay and parents who broke federal immigration law and they're not citizens, and the kids are citizens because they were born here in this country. It's probably like 0.001% of situations like this in the United States. But let's take a listen to Trump and what he actually said on MSNBC here.
Let me ask you about another group of people, the estimated 4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your borders are
You're talking
Tom
about
Homan.
separation.
Yeah, well, there are two aspects to this. Your borders are, Tom Homan said, they can be deported together.
Correct.
Is that the plan?
Well, that way you keep I don't want to be breaking up families. So the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
Let me ask you about another group of.
Okay. So, I've always asked this question. Why do we have laws that give illegal immigrants a free pass just because they have kids? I don't know why we've got laws like that. There needs to be some sort of change there, because you shouldn't be able to come to this country, break our federal immigration laws, have a baby, and then you get to stay, and you're rewarded for that type of behavior, while the rest of the world has to wait in line and do things the honest way, rather than exploiting children and exploiting your children to gain some sort of and to anchor yourselves here in the United States. This enables people to come here illegally just so they can have children, or so their children can be granted citizenship, and maybe they'll get to stay with their kids because their kids are citizens. It's flawed. It's very, very disgusting, honestly, if you think about it. Like, you just come to this country, you have a baby here, and you're trying to skirt our laws. And you're using this loophole. Really, it's a loophole in the law, and it needs to be dealt with. I hope that President Donald Trump deals with birthright citizenship and adjusts that law to where people can't take advantage of it. That being said, this is so insane. CNN actually airing someone who's fear-mongering and telling people and scaring people into thinking that Donald Trump is going to deport U.S. citizens. That's not the case. It's a very rare situation where you've got two parents who are breaking federal immigration laws, and they have a child here that is, a birthright citizen. And the best thing for that child is to deport them with their parents. And I don't think that there's a whole lot of parents that would disagree with that. Parents, illegal immigrant parents who would disagree with that. Most likely they want to take their kids with them. If they don't, that's probably pretty problematic, and they probably shouldn't have the kids in the first place. And it only further proves that those kids were only born because they wanted to stay in the United States. It's disingenuous, and it's the sort of reporting that has made them irrelevant. People are watching the Hallmark Channel more than they're watching MSNBC, okay? Mainstream media is irrelevant, and they were super irrelevant this election, and it's this sort of reporting and fear-mongering. Oh, Donald Trump's going to deport U.S. citizens. Give me a break. For a group of people who are desperate to fix their messaging, they need to stop with the fear-mongering, and they need to stop, and I'm going to get to this story, villainizing heroes, and they need to stop celebrating villains. Okay, what am I talking about? Well, we're going to get to it. Scott Jennings, he explained things really, really slow for us. Daniel Penny, good guy. United Healthcare CEO killer, bad guy. We're going to get to that clip on CNN. Scott Jennings, I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Yes, Scott Jennings, he wrote it down on a piece of paper, spelled it out for these nincompoops on CNN. I do want to get to this here. Here we go. Yeah, this was on CNN. He was on a panel, of course, and he spelled it out for these nincompoops. Really, really slow for him, you know. Plus, I want to get to Taylor Lorenz, because Taylor Lorenz is actually saying that she feels joy that the CEO was killed in cold blood and just assassinated. Yeah, there's like, they're very rare. I think that there's anchor baby situations, and if there are anchor baby situations, then typically parents are not against having those babies and those children deported with them, if they're a citizen of the United States. Okay, that most likely the parents are like, okay, yeah, they need to be sent with us. You know, they're not going to separate families. It's just a complete myth. It's just ridiculous. So we're going to get to Scott Jennings here on CNN here in just a second. But you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Let me get to some of your chats. I want to address this. This is weird. I know you're probably just a troll. Never seen you before here ever, but I appreciate you joining. Did you know that the Bible says, I need to address this, because anybody who, you know, goes after the Bible in this way, or anybody who's here just joining and they see this comment, I need to speak to it, because that's just not true. If you were to read the Bible, aren't allowed to speak in church. Give me a break. I don't want to argue with religion with you. Okay, then why are you arguing religion with me? The Bible does not say that. I would highly recommend you go read the Book of Esther. The Book of Esther proves that the woman, or that the Bible is actually very, very pro-woman. Esther, when it was a death sentence back in those times, it was law where you couldn't, anybody, women, men, didn't matter who, you couldn't talk to the king unless you were summoned. Okay, that's the way it was back in the time. So there were really crazy laws back then. Glad we've modernized it a bit and we've changed those laws now. But there were decrees out there that said that, hey, you're not allowed to approach the king without being summoned. This woman actually approached her king, Xerxes, King Xerxes, Esther, right? And she talked with him about something that his right-hand man did. He wrote a decree that was, you know, annihilating the Jews. There was like a purge day that he made, and it was a law that they wanted to purge the entire Jewish population on a specific day. Esther approached her king, despite it probably resulting it could have resulted in death. So she approached her king and talked with him about this decree and asked for this decree to be removed because she was Jewish, right? His wife, Esther. King Xerxes allowed for her to approach him and listened to her. Okay, so it's totally not correct to say that, oh, women were never listened to in the Bible. They weren't allowed to speak. They were actually listened to, and she was the queen of Persia, okay, and ruled without Xerxes at a period of time, I believe. I gotta fact check me on that. Yeah, Paul did more for women's rights than anyone in the Bible. Yeah, plenty of women in the Bible who were not only allowed to speak in the church, but also lead countries. Okay, lead entire countries, and were the right hand, or were influential in crafting decrees. So yeah, wrong, and clearly you don't read, and I highly recommend you read it. We're going to come back and we're going to be talking a little bit about Scott Jennings. Appreciate your comments. We're going to get to, oh boy, let me look at a few more comments. But it's all natural, so it must be okay. Yeah, this whole psilocybin thing. Oh, it is natural. It comes from a mushroom. It's okay. What I say to that is there's poison berries, right? There's berries that are poisonous to you. And just because you find these berries in nature doesn't necessarily mean that those berries are good for you, and doesn't necessarily mean you can consume them. There's good and bad things in nature. Just because it's all natural doesn't mean that it's okay. Appreciate the comment. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Jennings, he made it easy on CNN for the lefties who are vilifying heroes. They villainized heroes, and they're celebrating villains. So you would think that the media would, I don't know, try to get into the good graces of the American people and get the American people to try to trust them again, because it's the least trusted industry. People do not like the media. They're not watching. They watch the Hallmark Channel more. You would think that they would do everything that they can to get the American people back on board. I'm sorry, but vilifying heroes and celebrating villains is not the way to do it. CNN Scott Jennings, he slowed things down for the liberals. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
If you're on the American left tonight, here's my chart. The good guys today, Daniel Penny. The bad guys, Luigi Mangione. It seems to me.
How do you?
Everybody
what's
on the
the
left,
chart for victims?
I'm just telling you what I see out in the world.
I know.
Today.
I just want you to finish the chart.
Which
victim is good and victim is bad.
What I'm telling you is
that's not on the second page.
People on the left can't seem to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys.
People on the left. I'm asking you whether you consider this person.
We have people praising Luigi.
I want to know whether you think that, as Congressman Crane does, that Daniel.
If you're on the
all right, so you've got Scott Jennings here, and he made it real easy. And you have to hand it to the left in the media. They really outdid themselves here. There are few sarcastic things that they can make up and claim they believe that they don't. There are very few things few sarcastic things you can make up and claim that they believe that they don't. Okay, so celebrating the assassination is Taylor Lorenz. So I want to get to this story here, or this clip here. Taylor Lorenz, she actually feels joy because of the assassination of the CEO. Let's take a listen.
Life. And I think that's why I felt, along with so many other Americans, joy, unfortunately, because it feels like
serious.
I mean,
joy in a man's execution.
Maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again,
we're watching the footage. How can this make you joyful? This guy's a
So,
husband,
Piers,
he's a
like
father,
millions,
and he's being
and
gunned
so are
down in the middle of Manhattan.
so are
Why
the
does that
tens
make
of
you
thousands
joyful?
of Americans that being murdered. So are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people. And the many millions of Americans that have watched people that I care about suffer and in some cases die because of lack of health care.
So should they all be killed then? Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No, that would not.
Well, why not?
And
why are you laughing?
I think because it wouldn't fix the
You seem
system.
to find the whole thing hilarious.
I find your question funny.
A bloke's been murdered in the street. I don't find it funny at all.
I don't find it funny that tens of thousands of Americans die every year and because they are denied life-saving healthcare from people like the CEO. Now, I want to fix the system. You're right. We shouldn't be going around shooting each other with vigilante justice. No. I think that it is a good thing that this murder has led to America, or really the media elites and politicians in this country paying attention to this issue for the first time. You mentioned you couldn't understand why somebody would feel this reaction when they watched a CEO die. It's because you have not dealt, it sounds like, with the American healthcare system in the way that millions of other Americans have.
I've dealt with the healthcare system in various ways in America.
Piers Morgan here, he's dealt with the American healthcare system. It hasn't led him to want to kill people.
I don't think it's perfect by any means, but the idea that I would view it as something.
Have you been denied life-saving
hang on. The idea that I would view it as something joyful that a man has been, who's just a healthcare executive, has been executed in the street, I find completely bizarre.
Yeah, completely bizarre. Piers Morgan, who by no means is somebody on the right. Okay, so Daniel Penny, he stepped in when another man, Jordan Neely, was threatening to kill people on the subway. And a multicultural group of people, black, white, Asian, they all stepped in to try to help Penny take down this guy because this guy, Neely, he was going to hurt people. And he restrained Neely. Penny was the one who actually restrained him and was restraining Neely when he stopped breathing. Okay, that's why Daniel Penny was charged, and he was later found not guilty, thank God. But there were multiple people who were trying to help Penny take down Jordan Neely because he was a threat. Okay, the left decided Penny should be held accountable for murder, while Neely, a criminal with 40 arrests, by the way. 40, I'm not kidding, 40 arrests, punching grandmas. Yeah, I mean, that's the type of guy Neely was. He got a televised funeral from Al Sharpton and other Democrats like AOC. Why? Because racism, right? The usual suspects, they presented this argument of racism. That's why, he was lifted up in the media, Jordan Neely, because he happened to be black. But a group of people, black, white, Asian, they all tried to help Daniel Penny take down this guy in the subway. But for some odd reason, the left decided that they wanted to hold Penny accountable for murder because he was the last guy holding him and he happened to be white. So you and me and anyone else who, has morals and is normal, we understand that the difference between Daniel Penny and the United Healthcare CEO killer, I'm not going to say it's this Luigi guy quite yet because he obviously hasn't been convicted, so innocent until proven guilty, right? But there's a big difference between the United Healthcare CEO killer and Daniel Penny, and anybody with morals understands that. If you voted for Kamala Harris, you might be a little confused about it, but Jennings' chart is very, very helpful, and he says, look, Daniel Penny, good, CEO killer, bad. Okay, United Healthcare CEO killer, bad. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I'll be right back. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in. Now, I want to wrap up today's show. This is kind of funny. This guy, he got arrested in Chesterfield County, Walmart, at a Chesterfield County Walmart. Now, he was arrested because he stole more than $1,000 worth of items while 50 cops were present. This is a Shop-a-Cop. Have you guys heard of this before? It's where cops go and they shop for toys for like Tots or like some sort of nonprofit organization. And this idiot, he wanted to go steal things right in front of like 50 different officers. Now, last year there was a woman in Michigan at a Michigan Walmart during the city's shop with a cop event. And she was surrounded by 75 officers, and she decided to steal over $700 worth of merchandise. Now, this year, it's a guy in Virginia, the Chesterfield County Walmart. This is a similar incident. According to the New York Post, 32-year-old Hector Valquez Maldonado, he was in the presence of lots of law enforcement, and he tried to make off with nearly $1,400 of merchandise. Security footage shows Hector trying to hide bulky items underneath his clothes, and he attempted to leave the store. Yeah, so the officers, they were notified, of course, of the shoplifting and process, and it didn't take them very long to find the suspect, and he parked in front, so story gets even weirder. He parked in front of like a bunch of cop cars, like 30 to 40 cop cars, right? And I mean, this is a level of stupidity that cannot be justified. Like, by claiming ignorance, you can't claim ignorance. You had to have seen those cars. You went in, you stole the merchandise, you saw the 50 cops around. Why the heck are you doing this? You know, he had a felony amount of items in front. He tried to steal a felony amount, so that's a felony, $1,400, in front of dozens and dozens of officers. Here we go. This is what an officer told CBS 6. As we approached from different directions, he tried to escape out the back at the back door of the store, but he was apprehended. I think he was stunned. What? How are you stunned? How are you shocked that you were gonna, like, clearly you knew you were gonna get caught, and maybe he just didn't care. And this is a common occurrence for him, where he gets caught by police all the time, and he didn't really care that he was going to go in and be surrounded by 50 cops and try to steal $1,400 worth of merchandise. This is like so brazen. This is just like the cojones on this guy. 30 to 40 marked patrol cars in the parking lot. We found his vehicle. It was actually facing our cars that were parked, and he would have had to have seen them, right? This is what the officer said to the media, CBS. Dude parked in front of 40 patrol cars. This is a level of brainlessness that I don't even want to pretend to make up. This is insane. And the fact that this happened twice, right? So last year this happened, this year that happened. I'm imagining next year it'll happen during a Shop with a Cop event. The world must have an endless supply of idiots if they just keep going out there and shoplifting in front of cops during Shop with a Cop. Like, what? Clearly he didn't think he wasn't. I just think he didn't care. I think that he was like, if I get caught, I get caught. Who cares? All right. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you so much. Tomorrow morning, we'll be back at it. This morning, we had all kinds of headlines. We talked about the Illinois Bond County accused of violating state law requiring public notification prior to approving a budget. You have to propose the budget, then you have to wait 15 days to approve the budget. An Illinois Republican state representative called Tammy Duckworth ignorant because she blurted out that she thought that Tulsi Gabbard was compromised. Compromised for what? Going to Syria and talking with, at one point, Assad because she wanted more information about the rebel forces. Give me a break. It doesn't make her a Russian asset, okay? It makes her a good intelligence, a member of the intelligence community. She's was on a fact-finding mission. We also talked about psychedelics. Are they going to be legalized here in Illinois? An Illinois physicians group, the Illinois Psychiatric Society, testified that there's not enough evidence. Now, that's not me saying it. That's a physician group saying that there's not enough evidence to call psychedelics safe. They actually testified to that. So we talked about a lot this morning. We talked about the CEO, the United Healthcare CEO killer. We talked about Daniel Penny. The show is archived always on YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel, or you can find me on Rumble. Bye-bye. Be blessed. We'll do it all over again tomorrow morning.